Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. 50 years of hip hop, fresh off a birthday. Hip hop is 50 now, so can't retire yet, but whatever. Midlife crisis, maybe. But if you missed it, the last episode I produced was in celebration, obviously, of 50 years of hip hop, but also I did a 10 impact artists in hip hop history, not a top 10, not necessarily the 10, literally just 10 artists who had an impact on a large impact, in my opinion, on this culture and the music we all enjoy. If you would like to check that out, the link to that episode is at the end of this episode, which should be really good. Now, big shout out to hiphopdx.com, allhiphop.com, complex.com. Let's get right into the business. Pusha T says his solo albums fall short of the Clips catalog. I ain't gonna hold y'all. I think I agree, but let's go on. This article is on hiphopdx.com. Let's see if we can get a quote from Pusha T. He admitted taking an L when he compares his solo catalog to the Clips catalog. This is what he had to say, and I quote, "Just to be all the way honest, ever since I went solo, I heard the cries from the fans of what they were missing from the Clips in my solo albums. And I've tried to mimic and infuse and tried to cater at some point, but it's never enough. And I had to come to terms with that." What did he say? He actually brings a level of, I guess he's referring to his brother, No Malice, used to be Malice. He actually brings a level of introspection that's like, man, I can't dial into it and do it the way the people and the fans want to hear it. And I've taken that L. So I'm not going to read anymore. You can check it out on hiphopdx.com. Check out that article. There is something different that I know, me as a Clips fan, it was an adjustment for me to hear a solo album from Pusha T, mainly because what I liked about the Clips were their brothers. They both could rhyme. They had similar voices, but you can tell them apart, and they complemented each other, and not only in the content of their bars, but also delivery. You know what I'm saying? They played well off each other. It was just like a perfect group, to be honest. And now you're just hearing one. And for me in particular, Malice was my favorite out the group. I thought, and I know this feels like blasphemy to some of y'all, but I thought he was better than Pusha T. And I could point to a number of moments, performances, where I just preferred his verse. Didn't make Pusha T's verse whack. But there was something about Malice that was what Pusha T does, but on another level. Right. And it might have just been experience from him being the older brother, and just his perspective. Right. It just might be different. But I will say Pusha T probably does not have a whack album. He does, or doesn't. He has albums that I prefer more than others, but just to really, really focus in on this point is he has most of his best work is his recent work between Almost Dry, which I believe was his last album, and Daytona, right? My Name Is My Name. Like, those three joints are dope, and they don't sound anything alike. So I find it I think I'm cool with Pusha T being solo. I think he's done enough in recent years to make me anticipate his solo albums. Now, will I take a new Clips album? Of course. But I don't know if it's going to be the same thing because, for one, we hadn't heard it in a while. And two, Malice is now No Malice. And No Malice don't talk about the same stuff that Malice used to talk about, right? He may talk about it from a standpoint of, that's what I used to do. But some of the swag is gone as a result. Now, there is a way to achieve what he once was with his new ideals. I just don't hear it sometimes when I hear a song from him or hear him featured on something. It's not the same. So while I agree with Pusha T to a certain point, you'll never be better than you were when you were in the Clips. But as a solo artist, he's really good. So far, when he's released, I believe the last two projects, Daytona and Almost Dry, made my top 5 of the year. I think I remember that. Daytona, definitely. I still bump that joint to this day. It's perfect. It's perfect. Okay? It's perfect to me. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Pusha T comes close to comparing his catalog to the Clips catalog, or do you agree with him and say he's kind of taking the L because of this? One last point on that: to have fans, to try to meet the demand of fans to capture what was in the Clips is impossible. So he should never try that, because the Clips is the Clips. It's you and your brother and Pharrell, and it's his bars and your bars, and that's what makes up the secret sauce. You can't take out an ingredient, a major ingredient, and just try to replace it with whatever. That's like when something requires milk, but you use water, right? And then you're just like, nah, this is not the same pancakes you made yesterday. So there you have it. So recently, on hip hop's birthday, a new album from an artist you may or may not have heard of before. Plenty have, but some haven't. Female MC named No Name, right? Her name is No Name. Like I don't have a name, but my name is No Name. So uh who I've heard of before. I heard her music before, and it really didn't move me enough to like anticipate it. But I knew she was good at what she did. And I knew this new album, Sundial, was coming out. And I was saying to myself, you know what? It's been a while since she dropped, and a couple of things have happened as far as her and what she tweets and what she says about things, and having certain people on this album. But I'm really about the music. And sometimes it's difficult to separate the two, because sometimes the ideals that you disagree with are in the music. So how can you say, well, it's just a good song? No, you got to listen to the lyrics also, right? So I never really had the biggest problem with that stuff, because there's plenty of hip hop artists out here that I can listen to if I don't like her music. That's just is what it is. So I decided I'm gonna give her new album, Sundial, a spin. And just so you know in detail, 11 tracks on this album, clocks in around 32 minutes, so it doesn't take up much of your time. Honestly, that's an EP, but 11 tracks. Uh, Guest appearances include Jay Electronica, Commons on this record, also Billy Woods, if you haven't heard of him. And in general, I like it. I like it. I like the production. I really like the production. Let me just say that first and foremost. I really like the production. I think this is a well produced album from top to bottom. And I feel like it's a perfect, given her flow and subject matter. I feel like the length of time for this album is perfect for what it is. She, as an MC, can be an acquired taste, right? But her style is specific for certain types of hip hop fans. So, for example, she can be a little monotone with not many inflections in her delivery, but in a lot of ways, um, without doing that, she still kind of gets her point across, and usually having inflections in your voice will say, well, I mean that line, or I'm happy about that, or I'm upset about that. And I still kind of get that from her. So for some people, it may be dull, it may be a little monotone, but I think it's fine. What I like about her the most is her wordplay. I think she's like one of those unassuming uh MCs where on the surface, if you're not paying attention to the way she lines the bars up and uses the words and meanings and attaches, like just basically puts together her verse, you won't even notice because it can come across so monotone. But the more you listen, the more you're like, that line was kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like slipping out of consciousness, like most rappers. She a rapper too. Like, that's kind of a dope line. You know what I'm saying? That's one of those lines that people start going crazy over if someone else said it in a different way. It's well delivered it in a different way. So she is dope in a lot of ways with the wordplay. Now, the subject matter, right? I am of the mind that it's free speech in this country, right? We don't have to like the speech. We just don't. We don't even have to agree with the speech. I just feel like it's her prerogative to say what she wants to say on her album, period. Um, I've seen some things about people being upset that she has Jay Electronica on her album. Now, this is the thing. This is the thing that's being left out of this conversation, but I'm gonna insert it into it. The conversation. Well, I want you pause, guards, to get crazy. Uh, Jay Electronica being featured on the album, he had some things to say about Jews. So obviously, they don't want to touch him when it comes to hip hop at all, which is understandable. But the problem with No Name is the majority of her fans are white. And she knows it. And I don't think she likes it. I think in a lot of ways, some of the things she says on Twitter and some of the things she may allude to or say on this project is a way of sort of kind of like saying, well, I don't want y'all anyway as my fans. And I want my people to like my music more, even though we don't really show up for you. So I'm mad at you also. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like both, right? I don't want y'all. I want y'all, but y'all don't want me. So I don't care about y'all. But like, do you want no fans? Like that's kind of how it is. And when that's organically your fan base because they dig your music, please understand you are popular on a different level when you have that fan base in America. We may not like it. We may think it's unfair. It's the same thing we said about Eminem, but this is a sister we're talking about who has a predominantly white fan base. Unfortunately, and all you got to do is look at the 50 years of hip hop concert and look at who's at the front of the stage predominantly. They come out to pay the most money to support. They will book you for things. They will go to the merch area and buy your stuff. Whereas some of us would do that as well. It's just not the majority of us. That's all. That's the difference. Some of us will do everything I just said, but the majority of us won't even show up to the show. And I'm no different. I'm not I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna point a finger at nothing. So you see what I'm saying? It's sort of like, to me, when you get a record deal, you have some decisions to make. You are either going to be F the industry and people like me because I say that and I don't care and I say what I want and I exist and whatever opportunities I don't get as a result, so be it. And maybe that's how she feels. And I feel like that's okay. But if you become a person who starts to complain about your position in this space and complain about the lack of opportunities, well, you got to understand business. There's analytics and statistics that say this is your fan base. So why would you say something that or do something that would piss them off. Now, I don't know if the black hip hop community is going to jump in and just all of a sudden become fans of yours, but I wonder why they haven't yet. But I say all of that to say the album, as it is, to me, is one of the best of the year. I love the production. I love her wordplay. Sure, it could be better. It's not in my top 5 of the year, but I'll tell you this much. I've listened 3 times and I keep listening and I keep listening. And at some point, if this happens, by the time I reach my best of the year, top 5 of the year, it may have a chance to get into my top 5 of the year. As long as I feel that it's better than the 5 or at least one of the 5 that I currently have on the list right now, I feel like it's just one of the best albums of the year. So there you have it. How do you feel about this whole thing? Are you familiar with No Name? Leave your comments in the comment section below. And lastly, so before I even get started, y'all, if you've watched this podcast, if you listen to this podcast, you already know how I feel about Complex. And it's not like a place that I wouldn't like work there, right? I think I should work there. Because I understand the business side of it. So everything isn't emotional for me or personal when I see one of their lists. But since we're talking about it, and since they did a top 50 New York rappers of all time list, I felt compelled by the hip hop gods on the birthday of hip hop to have something to say. Now, for those who don't know, who's never seen a Complex list, it tends to be a little controversial. Between Complex and Rolling Stones, that's what they do. And honestly, more importantly, they probably do it just for engagement. So some of the people that appear on this list, you're like, why are they even on the list? Right? Especially when you're talking about New York hip hop. There are other places where they got a couple of dudes who did things, but can you hit 50? It's probably going to be 20 local cats on there, if not more. Whereas when it comes to New York being the birthplace of hip hop, there's a ton of rappers that can make this list. So with that being said, I just want to say that I haven't looked at the list, but I'm going to look at the list right now live with you. And it's not live if it's like the future and you're watching this later and you're like, well, I'm saying you already know, get your ass out of here. All this stuff already happened. Okay. But let's get right into it. Let's just chill with the jokes and just get right into it. Now, I did see one person on this list. I saw number 50. And you remember what I said earlier about why is this person even on this list? That person being Ice Spice. I can name 100 rappers from New York in 50 years of hip hop who I would put ahead of her. And why do I say that? It's not hate. It's not hate because she's a woman. It's not hate because she's light skinned. It's not hate because she's of this generation. It's hate because she's not good. She's not a good rapper. What's the measuring stick? Now, you can have a popular song and not be the best singer. You can. People can agree collectively, yo, that brother cannot sing, but that song is dope. So that's what I mean, man. It's kind of disrespectful, but to be fair, let's see what they had to say and why they chose this 50, because that's the key. What is the criteria for this list? Obviously, us hip hop heads already think about who's nice on the mic. That's why I would react to Ice Spice like that. But that doesn't mean with Complex's list, that was the only requirement. In homage to New York's impact on hip hop, the Complex music team has curated a list ranking 50 of the greatest rappers from the city and its surrounding areas. from some of its founding fathers and mothers to young bloods who have injected new energy into the city's sound in the last 5 years. Skill, lyrical ability, if that ain't the same thing, okay, whatever. And impact on the genre and culture in New York and beyond were key factors in determining who made the cut. There are a few names on this list who may not have originated from New York, but their formative years were spent within the city, and their music certainly channels the essence of New York's culture and sound. Now, their requirements: skill, lyrical ability. Those are the same thing if you ask me, but I get it. Uh, she is none of those, by the way. An impact on the genre. That I could give to her, but I don't know how great of an impact that is when you're only talking about 50 from the birthplace of hip hop. To me, she doesn't make the cut. 1 out of 3 shouldn't make the cut. So let's just see who's in the last 10 and who's in the top 10. So 50, Ice Spice. 49, Pharoah Monch. Lord have mercy. No, they don't have Pharoah Monch at 40. At 49. Let's just keep going. Diddy at 48. Diddy's on this list. The same thing applies to Diddy that I just said about Ice Spice. Impact? Hell yeah. I don't care who doesn't like the shiny suit era. The Locks and Big and Black Rock, they all signed the Bad Boy hip hop. They don't get no more hip hop. I don't care what I don't care what suit they were wearing. People respect them lyrically, but again, Diddy's on this list. I can't believe it. All right, 47, Biz Markie. 46, Styles P. Lord have mercy, Styles P is not. He's not even in the top 20. Okay, all right. 45, Jim Jones. Well, Jim Jones could be on this list. I think later in his career, he's proven to be more of a respectable MC. I'd put Jim Jones on this list before I put somebody like Mano. I'm just saying. So yeah, I don't mind that one. I'm not mad at that one. 44, Grand Poobah. Do y'all? Well, put it this way. I'm happy he's on the list. But I think Grand Poobah could at least get top 30. Come on, man. He was the guy for a minute. All right. I'm getting upset, y'all. Melly Mel at 43. Sean Price at 42. Sean Price at 40. Sean Price is at 42. Okay. 41, ASAP Rocky. And 40, Kool Moe Dee. Some of those I'm not that mad at. But others, I'm just like, I can argue for a couple of those people to come off the list, and I can argue for movement with like Styles P. How did you have Styles P and Pharoah Monch and Sean Price in the 40s? Pharoah, okay. Let's go to the top 10 before I get truly upset, because we're not going to go through this whole list. You can check it out, but pay attention to who was in the 40 or the 50 to 40 and who's in the 10 to 1 category, and then think about who I didn't mention and where they could show up on this list, because we're not going to go over it. Number 10, KRS-One. I'm not mad at that. Number 9, Busta Rhymes. No. Now, Busta checks off some boxes for sure. He might check off all of them, right? Lyrical ability, yeah, he might check off all of them. But at the end of the day, I think he's right outside of the top 10. DMX. I feel the same way with X. I feel like X's impact was big. But I feel like lyrically, it's a give or take thing. So he should also be right outside the top 10. Number 7, Nicki Minaj. No, they did. No, they didn't. Nicki Minaj is number 7, but Pharoah Monch is number 49. Nicki should be on this list, but she should not be top 10. Okay. Number 6, 50 Cent. I'm sort of not mad at it, but if someone wanted to put him top 15, top 20, I also wouldn't be mad at that. So LL Cool J at number 5. Listen, man, listen. If you watch or listen to this podcast, I've been saying it all year, 50 years of hip hop. I've been saying it all year that LL Cool J is the GOAT. But that's my personal feeling, right? But number 5, I don't know. Let's just keep going. Number 4, Rakim. Okay. So I already know what I'm about to see with the top 3. I already know. Or at least I think I know. Number 3, Nas. Highly disrespectful considering this late run, but let's go. Number 2, Biggie. Okay. And number 1, and this one I knew, Jay-Z. Let's just talk about the top 3. I told y'all this is personal, okay? Let's just talk about the top 3. I love all 3. Everything they have. Whack albums, dope albums, I got them. Except for Biggie duets, because that's something else. I have everything. Mixtapes, early stuff, everything. Love all 3 of them. Really, back then, that love was like Big and Nas. And Jay-Z kind of eventually inserted himself into that trinity, holy trinity of New York rap. Let the record state 2 Brooklyn cats is in the top 3 on this list, so I'm not mad at that. But Jay-Z should not be ahead of Nas. I'm sorry. Now, you want to talk about impact? You trying to tell me Nas ain't have impact? He was on my impact list last week. And I explained exactly why he's there. But I think a lot of times with Jay-Z, people think about his wallet now more than the history of his music. He had a lot of hits. Nice with it. Mixtapes, freestyles on the radio, all of that. And not that this is the deciding factor, but Nas has had a nice run with these later albums that Jay-Z, he hasn't done anything like that. When you take Jay-Z's last 3 or 4 albums, it's hit or miss like crazy. Like it really is. And it's not the same run late in their careers. And most importantly, because you could try to rewrite history, but I was there and I was on the radio when it happened. But Jay-Z and Nas did battle, and the people decided who won. And it was Nas. And I don't care what you say, I was there in NY when I did my hip hop show in P-More. It was the same thing. On the commercial station out there, it was the same thing. At other stations, like I think in LA too, they did a vote too. It was unanimous that Nas won the battle. And I don't care about war. Jay-Z won the war. What war? What are you talking about? This is hip hop. There's no war. Who cares if Nas went to Def Jam? It's business. Actually, that was more of a hookup, right? But regardless. Now, when you talk about New York rap, as much as we love Jay-Z and we love Nas, let's just go to one borough. Jay-Z, I'm gonna get close. Jay-Z ain't never have Brooklyn in the way that Big did. And don't let anybody tell you any differently. He said it, but Big didn't have to say it. That's the difference. King of New York came from Big. He said it about himself, and then we said it. You know what I'm saying? I'm a floss till they throw me a Bed-Stuy parade. Dog. When Big's casket was going through Bed-Stuy, it was a sad moment. And then they hit Hypnotized, and Brooklyn did what Brooklyn did. It was organic. It wasn't planned. It became a celebration of this man's life when most people were sad at that time. And that's when he passed. So let me be clear. Jay ain't never have Brooklyn the way Big had Brooklyn. Never. And that doesn't mean we don't claim Jay-Z. Of course we do. But it ain't never been the same. You see what I'm saying? So how can you have New York when it comes to rap in that way? You just can't, you know. So again, the list is Fugazi, but it's their list and they have their motives and reasons and whatever why. But those were my personal feelings about the best hip hop New York rappers of all time. I think it's cool list, but whatever, man. Leave your comments in the comment section below. You can subscribe to this podcast, the audio version, wherever you get this podcast, but you could also watch it on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, like things you like, comment if you will. I read the comments, I reply most of the time. But most importantly, if you like it, share it with the people you know would also enjoy it. All right? Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.